The Excretory System by Hannah Bush, Madison Kaminski, Evie, Pena, and Emily Wechsler. Why is the excretory system so important? The excretory system serves as the device for waste disposal for the body. It gets rid of any useless byproducts that cell gives off, and also toxins, excess water, and other solutes the body no longer needs. By doing this, it also regulates blood pressure, metabolism, and the composition and volume of blood and gets rid of any harmful chemical buildups.
These are the parts of the system and their function. If you don't understand how they all fit together, we will explain later how the pathways work. This is a list of all the important parts of the excretory system. I'll talk about a couple now, but most of them are explored in more detail in a moment. The aorta has a branch called the renal artery, which leads blood to the kidney. The renal vein returns processed blood to the body. The adrenal glands sit on top of the kidney. They release hormones in response to stress and release a hormone into the kidney, which is involved in regulating blood plasma. The digestive system. The colon removes solid waste from the body and collects water to be reused. When the colon is full, nerves send the message to the muscles to push the waste out. Excretion is whatever food is not needed. The anal sphincter controls when stool is released. Respiratory system. The lungs are two sponge-like organs localized in each side of the thorax. They are constituted by pulmonary alveoli. They are responsible for maintaining life-supporting levels of CO2 and oxygen in the bloodstream by excreting the extra carbon dioxide and keeping a regular supply of oxygen. When you breathe out, your lungs are removing waste carbon dioxide made by your cells. The carbon dioxide is made by the process of respiration in your cells. Respiration is the release of energy from food. When glucose sugar is respired, energy is released, and water and carbon dioxide are produced. This is a metabolic reaction, so water and CO2 can be considered metabolic waste. There are about 500 million alveoli in one lung. They are covered in capillaries. The integumentary system. Skin is the largest and heaviest organ in the body. It has two layers. The inner layer has the sweat glands for cooling the body and getting rid of extra salt. Perspiration allows for some excretion of metabolic waste like water, salt, and urea. Eccrine and apocrine sweat glands are the source of perspiration. Dead cells and sweat are removed from the body through the skin. The nephrons are tiny filtering units that separate urea from the blood. They are tiny tubular structures that are a basic unit in the kidneys. They consist of a ball formed of small blood capillaries called a glomerulus and a small tube called a renal tubule. Your entire blood volume gets filtered approximately 20 to 25 times each day. The nephron controls the filtration process. The more concentrated, the more the transporters can filter out the nutrients. Also, the faster the filtration rate, the harder it is to filter it. The Bowman's capsule is at the beginning of the nephron and located at the cortex. Fluids from the blood in the glomerulus are enclosed in the sac. They are collected here and then moved through the rest of the nephron for more filtration. The kidneys are bean-shaped organs about the size of our fists near the middle of the back, just below the ribcage. Urea from the blood is filtered through the tiny filtering units called nephrons. It is the only organ in the body that has two capillary beds in succession. It regulates the composition of blood, keeps concentrations of various ions and other important substances constant, and keeps the volume of water in the body constant while removing waste from the body. It regulates blood pressure, stimulates making of red blood cells, and maintains your body's calcium levels. It filters 20% of plasma and non-cell elements from the blood inside the nephron. It reabsorbs the components from the body that the body needs from the lumen back into the blood. It secretes some unwanted components from the blood into the lumen from the nephron. Anything not absorbed from the lumen is filtered out in the urine. It regulates blood composition by removing excess hydrogen ions or base from the blood into the urine, or by restoring the bicarbonate in the blood. It influences blood pressure by causing the arteries and veins to constrict and by increasing the circulating blood volume. It also releases hormones to do some of this regulating. The ureters are two with muscle that tighten and relax to force the urine downward. The bladder is a hollow muscular organ like a balloon which stores urine until it is ready to be emptied. The sphincter keeps the bladder from leaking, and the urethra is where urine exits the body.
How does the excretory system contribute to homeostasis?
In the digestive system.
Waste in the blood are a result of breakdown of tissues such as muscles and from food. Our body uses food for energy and to repair it after
nutrients
have been absorbed from broken down food particles. Wastes, also known as urea, are sent to the blood. If the kidneys did not remove them, these wastes would
build up in the blood and damage the body.
The kidneys are a vital part of the excretory system that work in cooperation with the digestive system to remove these wastes and maintain
homeostasis
in the body.
In the respiratory system.
Oxygen in the blood is absorbed and used by the body's cells. Carbon dioxide is produced. This waste gas is carried by blood traveling through the veins to the lungs where respiration takes place. The respiratory system works with the excretory system
To rid the body of waste gases.
created by cells. The integumentary system also plays a small role in the excretion of metabolic waste through perspiration. Perspiration serves as a means of
Elimination.
for these wastes, which are composed of water. Skin contains
Sweat glands.
which help regulate the concentration of salt in one's body while also keeping him or her cool. The cooling of evaporating water and excretion of metabolic waste through sweat glands in the skin aid in maintaining.
Homeostasis.
In the circulatory system, the kidneys are essential in regulating the composition of our
Blood.
It regulates our body's salt, potassium, and acid content, as well as producing the enzyme
Renin.
to regulate blood pressure by causing the arteries and veins to constrict and increasing the circulating blood volume depending on its composition. The kidneys filter and return to the bloodstream about
200 quarts of fluid.
every 24 hours. Without the combined effort of the excretory system and circulatory system, the composition of our blood would not be regulated and the body would not be able to maintain.
Homeostasis. The function of the digestive system within the excretory system is to remove solid waste that carries no usable nutrients. After food travels through the mouth, stomach, duodenum, and
Ileum.
all the nutrients will be absorbed from the food. The nutrients are sent through the body to the blood. The undigested food that cannot be used is sent to the large intestine and then to the
Colon.
in the
Colon.
Waters and salts are reabsorbed and fluorinated is added to the undigested food for
Fermentation.
which creates what we recognize as
Stool or feces.
it is then removed through the
rectum.
and anus. Inhale.
Gases.
Mainly oxygen are carried through your
Nostrils.
into your nasal cavity. Once it passes through the pharynx, it enters the trachea, which leads to the lungs. Inside the lungs are tiny,
alveolar sacs.
covered in capillaries where the gas exchange occurs. The oxygenated blood travels by pulmonary vein to the
Left atrium.
where it is pushed into the left ventricle and then distributed by arteries to the rest of the body. In a systemic circuit, the oxygenated blood travels to the extremities of the body, where the
Oxygen is diffused through capillaries into cells.
oxygen reacts with glucose in the cells to create
Energy.
and CO2. The CO2 is diffused back into the systemic circuit and pushed through the vein.
The superior and inferior vena cava.
The right atrium and ventricle through the semilunar valve into the pulmonary artery, where it is taken.
Back to the lungs.
The CO2 is diffused into the alveolar sacs and travels back up the trachea and pharynx, where it is exhaled through either
Oral cavity.
or
Nose.
the integumentary system plays an
Auxiliary.
yet vital part in the excretory system, as it
Dispels waste through the skin.
perspiration eliminates metabolic wastes or sweat composed of water, salts, and
Urea.
the eccrine sweat glands, which are located all over the body, are the source of.
Perspiration.
They are tubular structures surrounded by capillaries in order to allow waste to diffuse from the blood into sweat glands. When body temperature rises, the fluid or sweat from the sweat glands is released, travels through,
Duct.
and reaches the skin surface through pores. The primary component of the excretory system is the urinary system, which dispels waste in the blood called.
Urea.
When you eat food like
Meat.
poultry and certain vegetables, your body metabolizes these protein-rich foods, creating
Urea.
which is carried in the bloodstream to the kidneys. The
Urea.
is carried through the renal artery to the kidneys. In the kidneys, tiny filtration units called nephrons remove the
Urea.
from the blood and the glomerulus, a ball formed of tiny capillaries. Some reabsorption occurs in the nephron. Salts, phosphate, glucose, and amino acids are reabsorbed by active transport, which requires energy to move materials against a concentration gradient. Some water is also absorbed during this blood filtration process. The processed blood is returned back to the body via
Renal vein.
the
Urea.
then travels down the
Renal tubules.
of the kidneys to form urine. From the kidneys, the urine passes into the ureters, which are thin tubes. The muscles of the ureter walls that constantly relax and tighten force urine down away from the kidneys to keep it from standing still and backing up, which can cause infections. Small amounts of urine are released into the bladder in increments of 10 to 15 seconds. When the bladder is full, it swells into a round shape. Nerves in the bladder send a message to the brain when the bladder is full, which makes your need to go to the restroom more intense. When you urinate, the brain signals the bladder to tighten and the sphincter to relax, so you can urine.
When the sphincter relaxes, urine exits out of the urethra. Because the excretory system is so important, there are a lot of medical issues one can contract. Wah, wah. As you get older, kidneys tend to lose some of their waste-removing abilities, and the muscles of your urinary system lose strength, which could lead to urinary infections if the bladder does not empty completely, or cause urinary incontinence, or the unwanted leakage of urine. This is obviously not life-threateningly serious, but it can be detrimental. Health problems occur when people have less than 25% of kidney function, and if it goes down to below 15 or 10%, then the patient would either need dialysis or blood cleansing treatments or a transplant. Renal calculi, or just one renal calculus, is a kidney stone. They're a mass made of tiny crystals that appear in the kidney or ureter. They form when the urine has had too much of one substance and forms quite slowly. They're most commonly made of calcium. They lead to pain in the abdomen or on the side of the back and can lead to the pain in your groin area. And they usually can be removed from the body without permanent damage, either by excreting it naturally with the help of some laxatives or surgery, but if not treated, it can lead to kidney damage. Hematuria is blood in the urine, either visible to the naked eye or microscopic. It is sometimes simply caused by menstruation or overly vigorous exercise, but it can also show that there is cancer or inflammation of the kidney or bladder, or even a blood clot. It is typically treated based on its underlying cause. A cystocele occurs when the wall between a woman's bladder and her vagina gets weak enough to allow the bladder to drop into her vagina. This could lead to an unwanted leakage and incomplete emptying of the bladder, or it may stretch an opening in the urethra to cause a leakage if the woman coughs, laughs, sneezes, or moves in any way that puts pressure on the bladder. It usually occurs from muscle strain of childbirth or heavy lifting. Another cause is when women go through menopause and stop menstruating and producing estrogen that keeps the muscles and walls around the vagina strong. It can be treated with surgery. Another excretory condition is hyperhidrosis, or excessive sweating, even in situations when the body would not need to sweat, like when it's cool or when the body was at rest. Or it could be the opposite, anhydrosis, where the body does not sweat at all. This is dangerous because heat cannot be released from the body, and that is the excretory system.